Do you feel like your GIS career has stalled even though it seems like you're doing everything right? Well, you're not alone. And based on many conversations that I have online and all of these Reddit posts that I've been combing through over the past week, this seems like a pretty common theme in our space. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can approach advancing your career in geospatial, either via learning, certifications, going back to school, or just kind of working and learning on the job and moving up the career path chain. Number one, before you go any further, I want to be clear. You're not alone here. This is probably something that you and many others are thinking about. So it's pretty common, right? Everyone is trying to figure out how they take their next step, advance, and grow. So you are not alone. And let me just give you that sense of encouragement that a lot of people are trying to do this just as you are. But I think there's three big reasons. First of all, why people get stuck, and then some different ways that you can start to get out of that. And that's really what I wanted to break down today in this discussion. So one of the first reasons that I think a lot of people get stuck is they get stuck in what I would call the technician trap, right? And this aligns to probably what are two of the, I think, common GIS roles for early career or even, early mid career, which is the GIS analyst or GIS technician, right? Now, when you think about those roles, there's two things that come to mind, right? One is that it's very aligned to project-based work, right? There's a project, it has a start and an end date, and there's a set of things to do and deliver with that. What that means is basically you and your value that you're bringing to that is tied to that project starting and ending, which can be potentially kind of risky when you think about it. If that project were to go away or something were to change, you have to have a new project to back that up and go and scale from there. But it also doesn't tie your value to any sort of strategic output at the end of that, right? You're tied into that technical sort of role where you are just the person executing that idea from A to B, right? That's one big limiting factor, right? Now, GIS is of course a part of this. Is you're taking an idea and implementing it technically, but you don't want to be just the one pushing the button to do that or create the thing and then take it from end, and then once it's done, you're done, right? You want to be the one that's also driving the strategic value from that thing. And value is a term I'm going to talk a little bit more about during the course of this chat that we have. And I think it's also one that I think you should be thinking about is what is your value that you want to create and how do you position yourself and the value that you're bringing to the table? Now, of course, as you go through these projects, you're embedding all the spatial thinking, you're learning everything you've done to kind of bring value to the thing that you're creating at the end of it. So it's not to say that you're not bringing value during this process, but as it's seen from like a career organizational perspective, your value is directly tied to these outputs that you're creating. And that's that technician trap that I kind of think you can get stuck in from time to time, is that you are directly tied and integrated to that value. Now, ecosystem aside, whether you're using desktop GIS, Esri, open source, Python, SQL, whatever that is, that's a little bit less relevant here. This is kind of a step above that to say that, you need to understand the goals and vision of an organization and start to think how you can move into something more strategically that helps you define what that goes out to. And that kind of brings me into my second point. This one I kind of call the map mentality. And going back to that, like I said, your value is tied to that project, right? You don't want to mistake deliverables for outcomes, right? Outcomes are very different from deliverables. A deliverable is something, if you're creating a sandwich and making a sandwich, your deliverable is the sandwich, right? But the outcome of that is if it's a really good sandwich, the joy that it brings the person that's eating it. You want to start to focus on outcomes, right? What are the things that you're bringing to the table that deliver value from the thing that you've created? Now, I see this mistake a lot on like GIS resumes and stuff like that, is that I implemented a ArcGIS system or I built a Python script that does A, B, and C, and that's a deliverable, right? It delivers something there. What did that thing do? Well, I created a map that enabled my community to understand access to parks or something like that. That's an outcome. Right? The Python script helped us scale and automate a process that delivered data to this division or this organization, right? That's an outcome. You need to start to understand and separate, yourself and your career from a support role into more of a strategic role. This is more technician versus value, right? Once again, that same sort of thing that I was talking about before. This translates into all the things that you create. Now, if you are creating a portfolio for yourself or your resume, start to move away from a portfolio of problems to a portfolio of solutions, right? The map you created, the output, the cartography, the all of that is amazing, right? And this is why we got into this field in the first place. But it's just a positioning change. It's kind of a way in terms of how you position those things that you did and change that a little bit to say, here's what I delivered as the value. And you can do this not just in if you're searching for a new job, but if in your current job as well. Start to advocate and say, here, I'm doing this thing, but it's delivering this sort of value to people. And that sort of mindset switch can have a really big impact on the way you're working and the way you're delivering the things that you're bringing value to. Now, the third point is that there a lot of times when you're in this position, it can kind of seem like there's no clear next step, right? If you're in a GIS analyst role, they might have GIS analyst 2 or GIS analyst 3 or GIS technician or senior or whatever. It doesn't seem like while the titles might change, the responsibilities are a little bit different, it's hard to understand what your next step is, right? You're kind of doing the same work with a little bit of a different title. And within that, it's really hard to benchmark your growth, right? How are you growing and changing the things that you're doing, right? This can help you. And I think one thing here that may seem like a little bit strange, but you actually want to specialize and focus a little bit more. Now, specialization and focus, I think, are two big things, and this is very similar to positioning on top of that, can help you really hone in what you want to do and how you can drive value from the things that you're doing. Now, what does that mean? I would pick areas of interest to you in two areas, right? Technically, what's interesting to you? What are the things that you really, really enjoy doing from a technical, geospatial, or GIS perspective? For me, I love writing code. For me, it's like solving a problem every single day. I get to find a problem, find a way to express that during programming, and then show an amazing output and value from that. That's what I love to do. For me, it's like solving a puzzle every day. That's just, it's fun. So that's technically what I like to do. But the other side of that is the value equation, right? What is the value that you're bringing to that? So imagine you are, if you really like Python, right? And you love the data side of it, getting deep into the data, moving data around, things like that, kind of start to position yourself as a geospatial data engineer, right? Now that's the technical side. What's the value you bring from that? Let's imagine it could be for an organization. Say I help organizations deliver fresh insights from geospatial data every day, right? That's a great way to say that your value that you're extracting from that. And that elevates what you're doing there. But that could apply to a very specific problem set as well. If you're working in the climate industry, to say I help deliver fresh climate insights to organizations using Earth observation data, just a different pivot. And you could apply that to any different thing. And what's most noticeable about this is I actually joined a Esri webinar yesterday. It was kind of on the value of location intelligence. And there were, I think, 3 individuals from Verizon and I think Steamboat, the ski resort here in the US. And what was really interesting was that it wasn't much of a discussion about the technical implementation of what they were doing, but it was very clear that it was about the value that came out of the things they were doing. From Verizon, it was, physical security, like, these maps help us protect our employees and individuals around events that we hold. For Walmart, it helps us understandable and predict where we should place different products. And that's the value that they're bringing there. From Steamboat, it was actually how they help, potentially rescue people or get the snow in the right places on the mountain. So everything you could hear there was tied to a value proposition, which is what you need to do. And I think that's really the key. So how do you get unstuck? I've actually been working on a program about this called the Modern GIS Accelerator. If you're interested in that, go look below. It's a combination of how you can build the technical skills, like I just mentioned, that you want to do to accelerate your technical growth, which I know a lot of us do, but also the career guidance to say, how do you develop the career skills? But here's a quick kind of preview of what that is first of all, learn the tools that you want. Like find that technical problem set that you love to solve. If that's expressed through cartography, web development, that's expressed through data engineering or data science and machine learning, figure out what that passion is within the realm of everything in GIS and kind of say hey, this is what I love to do, right? Get excited about it. And that's the technical toolkit that you can help focus in on. Now, what that technical toolkit looks like, I think will, I have a lot of other stuff that can help you decide if you need to learn SQL or Python or whatever that might be. But that's one place to start. Now, number 2 is, I think, really understand where you want to focus in on, right? What are the things that you want to focus in terms of delivering value, and align that with what you're seeing out in the world and the job market. Say, if you want to deliver value for bringing geospatial insights into a large retail organization, great. If you want to do that for your local community and your county, doing that through government work, I think that's amazing. You just have to figure out what that is and kind of start to position yourself as the person that's doing that. And then you should start to see, once you have that guiding vision for what you want to do, build and develop the projects around that using those skills. And you can do that in the course of your day to day job. Like, there's nothing to say that you can't do that there. Learn and use that time to grow and develop and add little pieces into your workflow every single day. But start to really get your positioning and anchored, and then start to develop those projects around that. That should be reflecting in your portfolio, on your LinkedIn, and your resume if you're applying to jobs, or if you're looking to expand in your career, start to have that discussion and say, hey, this is the career path I want to go down. How can you help me get there? So those are the things that I think you should do, is have that, kind of honest discussion about positioning your career and start to carry that forward from there. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of the things that you are trying to work on? Or what if you watch this and you decide to create your own positioning, what's the positioning that you created for your GIS career from here? So I'd really appreciate that. If you are interested, you can check out some information about the accelerator. I share tips like this on my newsletter, so check those out below as well. And yeah, I hope that this was helpful, because I know this is a thing that a lot of people are trying to understand and get a little bit better on.